The Supreme Court is taking more time to decide if the abortion pill mifepristone should remain available nationwide. Now, the White House is appealing a circuit court ruling limiting the drug's use after a lower court judge ruled it had been wrongfully approved nearly 20 years ago. So Jan Crawford is at the Supreme Court this morning to talk a little bit about this. Jan, good to see you. We expected something a little bit different yesterday.
Yeah, we sure did. I mean, I thought we would know this morning whether or not the court was going to block those lower court rulings indefinitely. But then without any explanation, the justices last night or yesterday afternoon said they're going to push back that deadline until tomorrow night.
Just hours before Wednesday's deadline, Justice Samuel Alito announced an extension which keeps the abortion pill mifepristone available nationwide for at least 2 more days. The Biden administration and drug manufacturer have asked the justices to step in or block lower court rulings that would ban or greatly restrict the pill, which is used in more than half of abortions in the U.S.
All of this is unusual from top to bottom.
CBS News legal contributor Jessica Levinson says it's uncommon for the justices to push their own self-imposed deadline.
We don't know if they're so close to being able to have a unanimous agreement and they want to be able to get there, or if there's just such a huge breakdown that there are really aggressive majority opinion and a really aggressive dissent.
While the court is not currently considering the merits of the case, it will determine if women continue to have access to the drug while cases work their way through the courts. The American Medical Association says recent rulings could undermine FDA approvals of other drugs.
We just think it's incredibly reckless to upend our entire drug approval system in this country and create chaos where we're going to have individual courts in states around the country basically undoing those decisions.
Some Republicans in Congress say that concern is overblown.
Now, this isn't related to regulation of drugs. This is related to a federal bureaucracy following the rule of law.
But the White House says it's ready for a battle in the courts.
We are prepared for any outcome the Supreme Court may issue, and we are prepared for a long legal fight if necessary.
And it probably will be a long legal fight because even if the justices put these rulings on hold indefinitely, well, that case, of course, will still continue to work its way through those lower courts. And then there are other challenges in other states. So regardless of what happens here, the issue of abortion at some point is going to be right back before these justices. Anne-Marie?
So, Jan, when we talked yesterday, you said, you would be surprised if the justices did not block this lower court decision because of kind of conservative legal principles. But now we have this kind of rare extension. So is the feeling that we would still be surprised, or are people kind of starting to talk about maybe the decision can go another way?
I'd still be surprised. And, we don't know why they put this deadline, pushed it back until tomorrow night. Yes, I think, you may speculate that perhaps it suggests the court's not unanimous, so they need a little time for some dissents. Or as Jessica Levinson said, too, maybe they're trying to reach a unanimous decision. But it could also be something as simple as, guess what? They had a really busy day up here yesterday. The papers in this case weren't finally in and before the court until late Tuesday night. Then they get up on Wednesday morning. They've got arguments all morning. They've got lunch where they all have lunch together, believe it or not. And then they have a private conference. And so they're not even finished with the work of the day until, around the time that Justice Alito said, look, we're going to take a couple more days on this. And then one final point on the kind of timing issue and why I just don't think it really tells us much of anything, and we certainly don't know why, is most of the time the justices, when they're issuing these kind of stays, like Justice Alito did last week, don't put a date on them. He's one of the few justices that will say, we'll be back to you next week. So, most of the time they just say, we'll have it when we have it. So that's why it's unusual that they're pushing the date back, because Justice Alito is one of the few justices that actually ever put a date on it to begin with. So, bottom line is I still think it'd be really surprising if the court doesn't step in and put these lower court rulings that would limit access to mifepristone on hold. I think it would be very surprising if the court didn't block them. But again, I guess now we're going to be kind of sitting on the edge of our seats for another, 36 hours or so.
Right. Okay. So I hear you. But can we entertain the alternative? What would the consequences be if the stay doesn't remain in place? I think the company that makes this drug is already taking legal action.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that goes into kind of the calculus of whether the court's going to step in here and block it while the legal challenges play out, because there could be some significant ramifications, not only in kind of, as we heard from the American Medical Association, upending, the approvals of this one specific drug, which is used in more than half of abortions in the country right now, but in also calling into question potentially other drugs and opening them up to legal challenges. So there's a lot, and then also allowing groups to go into court like the challengers here, who don't even have really a direct stake or a direct harm in a drug, and challenging it, or in a case and challenging it. So there's a lot of reasons where you could see huge ramifications in the short term, and most immediate, of course, would be the women who are seeking abortions, according to what the court does, and how they may or may not block the rulings. The lower court judge said no, never, this drug cannot be used. The appellate court said, well, he went too far. We're going to allow the judge the drug to stay on the market, but the FDA said 10 weeks. We're going to move that back down to 7 weeks. And the FDA said, yeah, well, you don't have to go to your doctor, a whole lot to get this medication. You could take it at home. We're going to say you got to visit the doctor 3 times. So, even if it goes with that, I guess you could call it a more limited appellate court ruling here, there still would be significant restrictions on this drug beyond what the FDA has authorized.
Jan Crawford, thank you very much.